Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's morning briefing. It appears as though the Islamic State in the Sinai Peninsula has reared its head again, this time firing 2 rockets into Israel shortly after an alleged attack on Egyptian forces. No injuries or damages have yet been reported. The IDF had not officially identified ISIS as the culprit, and a clear target had not yet been discerned, but Islamic State forces did later claim responsibility and have regularly been seen battling with Egyptian forces just south of Israel. Spillover violence has not been uncommon. The 2 rockets fell in the southern Eshkol region of Israel that sits next to both Gaza and the Sinai, with 1 rocket falling in an open field and the other allegedly right next to an Israeli residence. In other terror-related news, a Palestinian teenager has just been apprehended outside of an Israeli military court in the West Bank, holding what appears to have been a pipe bomb. Military police then closed the Shomron court following the arrest until the explosive could be neutralized. The suspect is a 17-year-old from Jenin in the northern West Bank, and his apprehension comes just a night after over a dozen other arrests in the West Bank in a refugee camp outside of Bethlehem. Israeli forces were apparently involved in a riot dispersal where the 15 suspects were arrested for questioning. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has put himself in the spotlight again this weekend as he turns his sights on Police Chief Roni Alshikh following a TV news report. According to the report that cited supposed police leaks, the Prime Minister is soon to be due for further questioning in connection to multiple criminal graft probes. Netanyahu, after hearing the report, went on the warpath against the police chief in a Facebook post where he said that Commissioner Alshikh made 2 important decisions after assuming his post. First, that there would be no more leaks in the investigations, and second, that there would be no more police recommendations for indictment. But he continued to say that since Lior Chorev was appointed to be the police's external political advisor at the cost of millions of shekels to the taxpayer, the leaks have become a tsunami. Netanyahu's accusations don't end there, though. He continues to illustrate possible connections between Police Chief Alshikh and Chorev, who he suggests is behind the leaks. Netanyahu has continued to maintain his innocence with respect to any investigations that include his name, cases such as 1000 and 2000 that cover charges of graft and abuses of authority, and cases like Case 3000, which looks into allegations of corruption. Evidence that speaks to the validity of the recent leaks against Netanyahu has yet to be presented. Under apparent pressures from the ultra-Orthodox and settler leaders within his cabinet, Prime Minister Netanyahu has now pledged to pave extra bypass roads across the West Bank for settler use. Israeli residents in the West Bank are often the targets of stone throwing and other roadside attacks. The Prime Minister seems committed to the project as well, as he promised to do everything in his power to get it done, including even dipping into the budget of other government offices. To Social Equality Minister Gila Gamliel and several others, though, this wasn't enough. Gamliel pointed to an alleged 10 billion shekels that the state isn't using, and said that, quote, the bypass roads are a matter of saving lives, end quote. Opponents to the new byroads call them discriminatory, however, saying that the inevitable outcome will be illegal outposts running along the new routes, many of which would be on Palestinian land. Pressure on Netanyahu appears to have risen from the right-wing members of his coalition ever since settlement construction began to slow down over the past year. Jewish Home Party Knesset member Bezalel Smotrich has also commented that settlement expansion has been greatly reduced under President Trump, as opposed to his predecessor. These comments come as a shock to critics, though, who are only looking at the recent approvals of thousands of new housing units in the Israeli settlement blocks. Following United States President Trump's latest announcement to revisit the JCPOA Iranian nuclear agreement, people have been looking for answers. While United States Ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley has just come out to clarify the White House's approach in the coming months. According to Haley, the United States will stay in the deal for now to see how to make it better. Her comments are loosely in line with what both President Trump and the deal stipulations have already said, though, which is that Congress now has just 60 days to try and renegotiate the United States' involvement in the nuclear agreement, as well as to decide whether or not to reimpose sanctions on the Iranian regime. Foreign leaders, including Iranian President Rouhani and High Representative of the EU for Foreign Affairs Federica Mogherini, have already stipulated that the deal cannot be changed, but some have argued against that point, including Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who has been championing the idea of either fixing or nixing the deal altogether. No matter what Congress decides and what actually happens next, though, it's sure to have major implications on the Middle East, especially for Israel, who's been in Iran's crosshairs from the start. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.